Hello everybody, this is Adam from Wax Pack Gods. I hope you're doing well. Today I thought we'd take a little break from the normal thumbing through cards routine and take a look at this 1982 Fleer logo sticker and stamp album. So this album was sold for 25 cents back in 1982, which was a steal, I think. You can probably still pick them up or pick them up again for pretty cheap. Now, there aren't any stamps in this album. This is pristine, if you will, although it's been through the rigors a little bit. You can see some dings on the cover and so forth. I got this from a buddy's collection a few years ago, a collection I've talked about a couple of times before. But anyway, on the front of the album, we can see a few of the stickers that you might find in packages of stickers from '82. So there's Fernando Valenzuela, Pete Rose, Dave Parker and Steve Carlton, George Brett. Looks like we've got Rod Carew back there, maybe Carney Lansford, and a Texas Ranger who I'm not quite sure who it is. And if we flip it over on the back, you can see it tells us to store it in a loose leaf binder, and it does fit in a 3-ring binder because of the 2 holes. So that was mighty nice of Fleer to make it convenient for us. Love the Fleer logo. Who is this? Is that Steve McCaddy? I'm not sure. It's one of those A's pitchers that threw about 500 innings a year back in those years. And there's Gary Carter, Reggie Jackson with maybe Willie Randolph looking over his shoulder. Looks like, is that Doug DeCinces? And maybe Mike Torres, Lance Parrish maybe? Catcher for sure. Guessing on a couple of those. But we can look and see how this would work. So you can see the stickers came in folded panels of maybe 10. And then you would tear them apart at the perforation lines. I guess not the stickers, the stamps. And then you would affix them to the pages inside. And as Fleer liked to do in the 80s, they arranged their stickers or their stamps by teams, just like they did with their cards. And so you can see the kind of the ghost outline of what each stamp would look like if you had each stamp, and then you would put it here on the spot. So you get kind of a reverse or kind of a negative image effect without any facial detail, which is pretty interesting. And it shows you batting averages for the batters, for the position players, and ERAs for the pitchers. So you can see there's the Fernando slot, which matches the pose and the Fernando sticker that it shows on the front there. So there we go, Los Angeles Dodgers from '81. And then we've got, sorry, I missed a page, sorry. The Cincinnati Reds, who in '81 had the best record in baseball but didn't make the postseason because of the funky split season strike shortened thing. So you can see they still had some good players back then. Tom Seaver, George Foster, Dave Concepcion, Frank Pastore. Who doesn't want Frank Pastore? Johnny Bench, Mario Soto, Ken Griffey Sr., Ray Knight, Ron Oster. And the logo is there, and of course, let's see if they show them. So this doesn't show the logo, the team logo stickers, but that was one of the things that Fleer always included in their cards after their initial set in '81. So yeah, we keep going. We have the St. Louis Cardinals, who were, of course, then in the National League East. Big names here would be Keith Hernandez, Bruce Sutter, Hall of Famer. Eventually, Tom Herr would be big. Looks just like Patrick Swayze. Darryl Porter wasn't a bad dude. And George Hendrick. No Ozzie Smith yet. still with the Padres. Montreal Expos, who were always a good to great team in these days. Tim Raines, Larry Parrish, Andre Dawson, Steve Rogers, an underrated ace. Jeff Reardon, Gary Carter. Love the old Expos logo. Okay, now we have the Houston Astros with Cesar Cedeno, one of my favorite players from the era. Hall of Famer Don Sutton, Hall of Famer Nolan Ryan, Joe Niekro, Art Howe, who was not the manager but the third baseman, Jose Cruz, the Elder. Here's the Philadelphia Phillies. And so this would incorporate a couple of my favorite players, Pete Rose. So there's the big Pete Rose face to match the big Pete Rose face on the stamp. And let's see, there's Steve Carlton, who was not one of my favorite players, but Mike Schmidt was. Gary Maddox, Gary Matthews, Lonnie Smith, Manny Trillo. Great stuff. San Francisco Giants had Vita Blue at the time. And Joe Morgan, Jack Clark, one of the only ones that was kind of young. So as we drop here in the standings, we start to see Fleer cut out the number of players they're showing. So they're just showing 5 players for the Giants and 5 for the Braves. And we don't even get a Dale Murphy. But we get Bob Horner and Phil Niekro and Gaylord Perry. Well, not too bad. Okay, and now we go back to the National League East. We've got Pittsburgh Pirates with Dave Parker, Willie Stargell, Bill Madlock, Tony Pena, young Tony Pena, Mike Easler, Jim Bibby. Still a lot of great players on that Pirates squad held over from the 70s. Okay, so maybe it's not just a standings thing. Kind of alternates here. So here are the New York Mets. Always got to have a lot of Mets. So there's Rusty Staub, the Big Orange, Dave Kingman, Mookie Wilson, Hubie Brooks, John Stearns, Doug Flynn, and Pat Zachary, a couple of guys who did some Reds work at some point. The Chicago Cubs. Let's see, who did the Cubs have that anybody knew at that point? They had Leon Durham and a guy with a really smooth name, Ivan de Jesus. Bill Buckner before the ball went through his wickets. And Mike Tyson before he ate Evander Holyfield's ear. And we have the San Diego Padres. And who were their stars? Ozzie Smith, who would soon be with the Cardinals, and Terry Kennedy. Then my favorite superstars, and so we have these combo cards, or combo stamps. Let's see, do we have any from the front? I'm not sure about that one. What did we have on the front? We had Parker and Carlton. Must be elsewhere. We got Valenzuela and Lasorda, Rose and Concepcion reunited. Okay. In the American League, we got the New York Yankees. Surprise. Reggie Jackson, Dave Winfield, Lou Piniella, Tommy John, Rich Gossage, Ron Guidry, Greg Nettles. Lots of big names. The Oakland A's. We had Dwayne Murphy, who was a good slugger. Ricky Henderson, who was on the verge of setting the single season stolen base record. Tony Armas, a huge slugger, and then all those pitchers. Okay, so the pitcher I saw was Jeff Jones, it looks like. Yeah, that's him. Jeff Jones. A little bit of forensic work here. Okay, Milwaukee Brewers, Raleigh Fingers, Jim Gantner, Gorman Thomas, Robin Yount had yet to win his first MVP award. Would do it this season. Paul Molitor, Ted Simmons, Ben Oglivie, Cecil Cooper, Pete Vukovich. Quite a team. This is the team, the 82 team, that went to the World Series. Okay, and here we have the Orioles, Baltimore Orioles, with big names: Jim Palmer, Rick Dempsey, Mr. Rain Delay, Eddie Murray, Cal Ripken Jr., who would be a rookie in 82. Detroit Tigers a couple years before they won their championship in 84 under Sparky Anderson. So we had catcher Lance Parrish, shortstop Alan Trammell, second baseman Lou Whitaker, starting pitcher Jack Morris, outfielders Steve Kemp and Kirk Gibson. Big names, 2 Hall of Famers with another one on the way, and Sweet Lou. The Boston Red Sox had Carl Yastrzemski, Jim Rice, both Hall of Famers. Carney Lansford, batting title winner. Dennis Eckersley, a Hall of Famer. Dwight Evans probably should be a Hall of Famer. Tony Perez, a Hall of Famer. So lots of names there. No Wade Boggs in this album. For the Texas Rangers, we had Buddy Bell, who has a decent Hall of Fame case. Very slow of foot, but a pretty good hitter. For Ferguson Jenkins, Hall of Famer. Bump Wills, Maury's son. Al Oliver. Some people think he should be in the Hall of Fame. Definitely put up some big numbers in the 70s and 80s. Let's see. Who else do we have? Okay, so the Chicago White Sox. Carlton Fisk, Hall of Famer, of course. Harold Baines, now a Hall of Famer. Rich Dodson, Greg Luzinski, Lamar Hoyt, Britt Burns, Mike Squires, Chet Lemon. Always loved Chet Lemon. Thought he was underrated. And this team would win the American League West in 1983. Next up, we have the Cleveland Indians with everybody's favorite slugging rookie from 1980, Joe Charbonneau. And we have Toby Harrah, Mr. Palindrome, John Denny, who would win the Cy Young in the National League for the Philadelphia Phillies in 1983. Rick Manning, Miguel Dillane, Bo Diaz, who ended up playing for the Reds. Burt Blyleven is a Hall of Famer. Mark Hargrove, who managed in the Bigs forever. Let's see. These pages are sticking together, so I may miss a team here or there. We will see. Kansas City Royals had George Brett, U.L. Washington and his toothpick, Dan Quisenberry, who I thought was the best relief pitcher of the time. Willie Wilson, speedster, little Frank White, who could do whatever he wanted just about, even though he was small. Hal McRae, another great Red, and Amos Otis. Let's see, the California Angels had Brian Downing, who was one of the first guys to lift weights regularly in the big leagues. Fred Lynn, first guy to win the Rookie of the Year and the MVP in the same year. Dan Ford, Bobby Grich, Don Baylor, Rod Carew, Hall of Famer. Seattle Mariners, but there won't be any King Griffey Jr.'s here. Let's see, we have Bruce Bochy, Richie Zisk, Tom Paciorek, Julio Cruz, Jeff Burroughs, who won the 1974 AL MVP with the Texas Rangers. And we have the Minnesota Twins with not really any big names. They were still a couple of years away from having like Kent Herbeck and Tom Berninski, Gary Ward, Roy Smalley. Good name, Rob Wilfong. It's a cool name. And then we have the Toronto Blue Jays to wrap up here. Dave Stieb, definitely an underrated pitcher. In my opinion, better than Jack Morris. And if Morris is in the Hall of Fame, Stieb probably should be too. John Mayberry was a slugger of some renown. Let's see. Damaso Garcia was a really good player for those Jays teams that won some division titles in the mid-'80s. Who we don't have here yet are George Bell and Jesse Barfield. And then here we have some more of these superstar combos. We have Jim Cott and Steve Carlton, Nolan Ryan, and maybe Ron Davis, Greg Nettles and Rick Cerrone, Ted Williams and Carl Yastrzemski. Now that one would be a cool one to see. I don't know if I've seen that one, that stamp or not. And then Dave Parker and Steve Carlton. And then in the back, you can order things that you're missing. 20 stamps and 2 team logos for only $1. So order your stamps by group numbers listed below. So you could order the groups of 10 that you were missing and send in your $1, no cash, and a self-addressed envelope with your name, address, and zip code. So that's how they were sending your stickers back, or your stamps back. So they may not have come back in pristine condition, but I bet you got them. So there we have it. Maybe someday I'll get some stamps to look through. Maybe we'll put them in an album. Who knows? But for now, that is the 1982 Fleer Baseball logo sticker and stamp album. Hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, I would ask that you like it and maybe consider subscribing to the channel. Otherwise, you can find us at waxpackgods.com or on Twitter at waxpackgods. Thanks a lot.